season of Talk Story with House Majority. My name is Della Albalati, and I serve as the House Majority Leader for the 31st Legislature of the state of Hawaii. It is my privilege to be returning to the House for a 15th term representing the urban Honolulu communities of Makiki, Tantalus, and portions of Papakolea, Manoa, Makali, and Pava'a. To our return viewers, thank you so much for rejoining us for our second season. For our new viewers, Talk Story with House Majority was born from the COVID-19 pandemic in March 2020 in partnership with a great team at Olelo Community Media. We are continuing to partner with Olelo, so be sure to support Olelo Community Media, facebook.com/Olelo Community. We're changing up the format this season with 1-hour programs every other week. This will enable us to do a deeper dive with our legislative and executive agency guests on issues important to the community and activities at the legislature. This longer format will also allow us to go out into the community and spotlight majority representatives in the places they live, work, and play. This was a busy but subdued week here at the Capitol. We started this session unlike any other session in our state's history. Like other capitals, Hawaii State Capitol was under tight security due to the insurrection and civil unrest we saw on January 6th in Washington, D.C. Fortunately, there were no serious disruptions and we were able to successfully convene for the 2021 legislature as the country witnessed the peaceful transfer of power at the federal level. For the House Majority here in Hawaii, we are focused on addressing the pandemic and public health concerns we continue to face, dealing responsibly with the state's tremendous budget shortfall, and positioning our state for a sustainable future as we navigate the waters of economic recovery. An issue that has been on almost everybody's minds is that of vaccines, and vaccines. So the rollout and whether you qualify, and to answer all of those questions you have, today I am joined by Eddie Mersereau, Deputy Director of the Behavioral Health Administration for the Department of Health. Eddie, you are the last executive department guest on season 1's last episode, and now you are the first guest on the second season. It's so fitting. To the viewers here, Eddie and his team have been responsible for the quarantine and isolation efforts that have helped our state deal effectively with clusters and providing services to those in need due to COVID-19. This team is now very involved in helping our state's efforts to vaccinate Hawaii's people. Eddie, can you paint for me a picture of who is involved in the statewide effort to vaccinate the people of Hawaii?
Thank you, Majority Leader. Honored to be here. Thanks for having me. So the vaccination effort consists of over 45 organizational partners across the state. They're all involved with our vaccination effort. And that's actually why we've been able to administer over 94,000 vaccinations across the state. And in just around 4 weeks, we started getting vaccinations mid-December. And so the partners include folks like all the hospitals in the state, the healthcare centers, the hospital systems, district health officers for each of the counties, and then also really small, but very committed groups like independent pharmacies, Times or 5 Minute, for example, and then some of our Department of Health teams, like you mentioned, that are working on the pod that we're doing in Windward, the Adult Mental Health Division.
So Eddie, you've mentioned it already, and maybe if we could pull up that new graphic. The Department of Health is going to start telling us on a weekly basis, is it, that how many people have been vaccinated? So what is the goal of this effort? And again, can you emphasize what was today's numbers for the administration of vaccines?
Yeah, so today's number as of this morning was 94,003 vaccinations, and we posted that this morning on our social media, and we'll continue to start, we're going to start posting that every day on our social media, except on weekends. And those are the we want folks to know the numbers that we're doing. I think sometimes there's a lot of confusion around the numbers that are being done versus the numbers that are coming into the state. So we want to make sure that people are informed and understand that there is a lot of effort going into the vaccination process. We're doing a very steady kind of strategic rollout of the vaccination because we have limited vaccines. But we want to make sure that we get those out and let people know what those numbers are.
And so we'll see those numbers hopefully tick up, but what is the expected time frame and what is the expected goal, again, of who you want to vaccinate?
Well, I'll tell you what, if the federal government gave us, 1.5 million vaccines delivered to us tomorrow, I think we would probably be done by summer in terms of vaccinating the majority of the population of those that want a vaccine. The goal is to vaccinate the entire population of the state. Everybody who wants a vaccination, the goal is to get them a vaccination. And I think if we continue to get the vaccinations at the rate that we're getting them, it may be a little bit longer than that, but we'll continue to move as quickly as we can.
And I really like that goal that you have. You want to vaccinate everyone in the state who wants to be vaccinated. And right now, the numbers look pretty tremendous that people want to be vaccinated.
Yeah, that's right, Majority Leader. So initially, as was the case across the United States, we were very worried that there was going to be a low uptake of people who wanted to get the vaccine initially. We were, some of the numbers that were being thrown around were 30 to 40% of the population were going to be wanting to come get a vaccine. What's really great is that we've seen the opposite. So we were worried that we were going to have more supply than demand. A good thing is that the opposite has happened, is we have much more demand than supply right now, which is it's actually a good problem for us to have. And so we're excited about the fact that the kind of community of Hawaii really wants to get vaccinated and do their part to really kind of get us through this pandemic.
And who is being vaccinated? We hear a lot about these tiers or phases. Who's being vaccinated now?
So we're primarily in phase 1A and phase 1B, which a lot of people kind of have different understandings of what that means. But really, in a nutshell, it's 1A are all of the health workers, the people that are on the front lines with this pandemic, people in the hospitals, nurses, doctors, etc. And 1B are folks like first responders, EMS, fire, police, and other kind of essential medical workers that may not be doctors or nurses and may not be working in a hospital, but may be working in community clinics and the like. And then most importantly, in 1B is our kupuna, who are over 75, which is over the next week or so going to be our focus primarily. We're going to be doing a big push to vaccinate folks that are 75 and older.
Thank you. So, I want to share with our viewers, recent news coverage has been dominated by the 2 mass vaccination sites that are being stood up by Hawaii Pacific Health and Queens Medical Center in partnership with the state that is helping to fund the locations at Pier 2 and Blaisdell Center on Oahu. But in addition to these sites, since late December, smaller hospitals across the state and on different islands have been serving as, quote, points of distribution or pods. So last week, I had the opportunity to join one of my newest colleagues, Representative Lisa Martin of Kailua at Adventist Health Castle, where they have been able to vaccinate their employees, healthcare workers on the Windward Coast, the 1As section, and thousands of Windward residents. If we could spotlight Adventist Health Castle.
I'm here with Ryan Ashlock, who is from Adventist Health Castle, and they are doing a major COVID vaccination hub, running it here, and have vaccinated over 1,000 people today alone, which is really awesome. So I just thought I'd ask Ryan how things are going and what some of the, the growing pains have been, what you've learned, how to make it run smoothly.
Yeah, overall it's gone really well. We have an amazing team here at Adventist Health Castle that has done an outstanding job in setting this up as quickly as they have. We started on December 21st was when we had our first shot in arm. And to date, we've done 2,500 individuals, but overall the community response has been really well received, and everybody's been very thankful to be able to get their vaccine here at Castle. There's been some people working behind the scenes for some really long hours over the Christmas holiday, over the New Year's holiday, and they've done a fantastic job to be able to serve our community.
Okay, so I know that you started with, healthcare workers. My mom actually got vaccinated here as a healthcare provider, and now you've moved on to other groups. How, as their turn comes up, how do people register? How do they get their appointment to get vaccinated?
Yeah, so the place that everybody needs to go to is castlehealthgrouphawaii.com, and there on that website there'll be directions on how to sign up and get registered. As we look at those that were still in the prioritized groups, there is a validation process that exists. You actually fill out a form, and then there's a team on the back end that is validating that you're in the respective groups that we're at this current time. Once you've been validated, then a scheduling link will be provided to you. We certainly encourage individuals to work with another family member or friend to be able to help them navigate the online scheduling. We also have a number that people can call, which is 808-263-5002, and somebody will be there to be able to help them with any questions they have, or even the ability to schedule over the phone for them. We have put in lots of protocols all throughout this pandemic here at Castle to ensure the safety for our community, for our patients, for our associates, and that's no different with our vaccine clinic. We have appointment times that are spread out appropriately to respect social distancing, and even as you get into the clinic, all the chairs are appropriately spaced out and then sanitized between each use to keep everyone safe.
Awesome. Well, I certainly appreciate that. I appreciate the testing you've done here. I've taken the test twice in the drive-in system. I know you've also helped. I've been involved with some feeding programs for the homeless in Waimanalo, and you folks have helped us there as well. So I just appreciate the way that you have embraced the community during this pandemic to help in so many different ways.
Our community's been so supportive, whether it's been goodies for our frontline workers or just understanding of some of the new protocols.
Okay, well hopefully we'll work through this and you'll lose this particular job.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we look forward to taking the mask off and getting back to some normal operations, that's for sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Lisa.
It was so great to get out to Windward, Oahu, to be able to see what hospitals are doing regionally to meet the needs of their communities. As representatives, we focus a lot on the state's efforts as well as initiatives in our own districts, but it's fascinating to really get out there and understand the state's approach from a statewide standpoint. So now let's get back to Eddie to talk a little bit more about these pods around the state. So welcome back, Eddie. In addition to the pods at hospitals like Castle, Hilo Medical Center on the Big Island, Maui Health, tell me about your team's efforts at even more localized pods, or even some of these pods on the neighbor islands.
Yeah, thank you. So we also have a pod, which is a point of distribution site at Windward Community Health Center, which we started before Christmas, where we vaccinated about 1,000 people with Pfizer, the Pfizer vaccination. We're at this point, we've gone every week since then, and at this point we're doing pretty steadily 1,000 to 1,200 doses per day, and we're operating about 2 days a week. And we'll be continuing to do that for the next 4 weeks at least, which will start to go into second doses after we've done the initial doses. Some of the other pods that are operating as well, there are like for Chair Yamane is involved in a point of distribution site at Leeward Community College that has vaccinated over 6,000 people in the times that they've been operating as well. And then we have a lot of mobile pods that we're really excited about to work with, for example, the small pharmacies who are going out to kind of the adult residential care homes or community foster homes where some of our most fragile kupuna and other residents are, because they're not going to be able to come to those pods. So we're going to try to bring the vaccination to them. And then obviously we have on all of the neighbor islands, we have similar efforts going on. For example, in Kauai, the district health office is running a really efficient, effective pod there. And same thing on the Big Island in Maui. And again, the goal is to really have as many choices of vaccination and increase the access to vaccination. You know, the pods that operate or that have been talked about a lot in the media, like the Pier 1, the Pier 2, and the Blaisdell Center, those are extremely important for us to have those, but they're just part of the overall bigger picture and overall kind of components of the vaccination system and the vaccination plan that we're doing.
So I heard you talk about really helping those who cannot maybe get out of their homes, people in congregate settings. It raises the issue and the question of what about these other difficult to reach populations, like the homeless population, the prison population, maybe folks in mental substance abuse treatment homes. Will there also be pods that are going to those very high risk areas?
Yeah, excellent question, and thank you for that. And as the Deputy Director for Behavioral Health, it's a very important focus for me. And there actually are pods going to some of those areas already. What we're doing primarily is we're focusing on the staffing of those facilities and programs and institutions. And the reason why we're doing that is because, again, similar to why we're vaccinating first responders and similar to why we're vaccinating medical care professionals, if the staff go down of those different facilities and programs, then the whole service goes down. Right? Like, for example, if all of the doctors got sick, then we wouldn't be able to care for the people that are sick. Same thing with homeless programs and behavioral health programs, et cetera, and also the prisons. So the strategic approach is very, very strategic and systematic, is to do what we can to vaccinate the staff of those programs, frontline essential workers, essential responders, and get those guys taken care of first. And then we can start to, as we get more vaccine, we can start to expand out to the folks that are the residents.
And you've already kind of spoken about it, about the benefit of these DOH-led pods is that it provides for geographic diversity. There's a sense there maybe our communities being ignored, but can you speak to that as to how is that a benefit of the pods that you are doing, that you're covering geographically large regions?
Well, I think that's exactly the purpose, is so that we can get to all of the corners of the state, basically, and if have as many opportunities for people to go to a pod if they can. And then if they can't, we figure out ways to get the vaccination to them. And so that's why it's a multi-tiered, multi-leveled approach. And really, you know, people talk about just the point of distribution, but what we're also doing are, you know, those standing pods. But again, we're doing the mobile vaccinations. We're going into the long-term care facilities. We're going into the small care facilities. We're going into the programs and other spaces where people have to congregate and have to be together and have difficulty physical distancing. And we're focusing on getting those guys taken care of first. And the reality is that as we continue to do that, more and more people will have access. There'll be more and more ability for people to get vaccinated. We've actually even started to do some house calls in partnership with our small pharmacies. We have at least 4 instances where we had some kupuna that were either extremely old and frail, or just unable to get out of the house to come get vaccinated. We had one who was 101 years old, and we went to their house and vaccinated that individual, and some other over 75 household members. So we're really excited about that. We feel really blessed to have the partnerships that we have to be able to make that happen.
So I want to talk a little bit about this because I hear a focus on the elderly kupuna, the 75-plus-year-olds. But then I know that on Kauai, you know, and then at Windward, Oahu, there were reports of teachers becoming already in line to get vaccinated. And I think that's really important that teachers are part of that 1B group and that they are, in fact, being assisted at these pods now. So we really are kind of starting to expand right? Depending upon the availability of vaccine on an island and the capacity at a pod for that given whatever population has signed up. Is that a correct way to describe what's happening? And so why there might be different, it feels like there's sometimes different people being serviced or versus others.
Yeah, so it's a really good point. So the goal is to get, again, everybody who wants a vaccination vaccinated in the state. We obviously, because of the limitation of the vaccines that we obviously have to be deliberate and systematic about how we do that. And so that's why we have those prioritization groups. But if you look at all of the folks that would technically fall into the 1B prioritization group, that's at least 200,000 people, because it includes teachers, it includes our kapuna, it includes a lot of grocery store workers, for example. And so we don't want to halt the kind of forward movement of vaccination by being really strict about who we vaccinate in each kind of category and each subcategory in 1B. So you're going to see overlap. Obviously, we're going to start, we're going to continue to start to, as we start to get through some pieces of 1B, we're going to start to do other pieces of 1B and so on and so on. Again, it's all dependent on the vaccination inventory that we have. We here at DOH, we have daily meetings to review the inventory and look at where those are going, where those vaccinations are going, and how we can prioritize them so that we can get them out to the most important people that need them.
So we focus on a lot about who can get the vaccines and kind of the different phases. But what I'd like to talk about now is who works at these pods. Who are these like heroes? Now there are heroes. They're getting us these vaccines in arms. Who are these people working at these pods?
They are heroes. They're people who suit up and show up and get it done. And they're from all walks of life in all different places. Yamane, for example, is somebody who has volunteered at the pod to do stuff. It's not to understand the point of distribution. It's not just those folks that are putting the vaccinations, doing shots in arms. That's technically the easy part. The harder part is registering people, making sure you have, kind of flow management. There's medical observations, that kind of stuff. So we have people from the medical profession. We have volunteers from different groups. We have a lot of people from the Department of Health that are doing that on top of their everyday, kind of day job. So we got a lot of folks that are involved. And again, it's an all hands on deck effort, and we appreciate everybody that comes and gets involved in it.
Thank you, Eddie, for sharing with us some of those details about the people, the volunteers who are showing up and being part of the process, and the state employees, our state workers who are making sure these pods happen. So this past weekend, UH was the host of one of these pods, and our very own chair, Representative Ryan Yamani, was volunteering at one. We were able to speak with him there at the pod about his participation and other ways he's involved in the community. So before we go to our next guest, Ryan Yamani, I'd like to share this clip with you. So I'm here today at University of Hawaii with Representative Ryan Yamani, where he's volunteering with Department of Health. Representative Yamani, tell me what you're doing here today.
So I am part of something called the Medical Reserve Corps, which is part of Department of Health, and we are volunteer health corps. So my section is I am non-medical, so we support medical services like a pandemic response to help the community.
And outside of being a legislator, you are also a social worker, and that's what you're doing here. So what kind of things are happening today at this pod, this point of distribution?
So today, my role is what we're doing is we're assisting the flow of those that coming in. We help organize the movement from people registering, getting the initial screening, and then going into actually getting the vaccination. Medical Reserve Corps is helping support places like University of Hawaii. We also supported doing the vaccinations for the law enforcement officers.
So you started this actually well before the new year, volunteering with these pods.
Yes.
And Department of Health is deploying these throughout the state. So can you not disclosing any locations, but kind of what were some of the communities you went into already?
So the major one we did is the 1A, which involved the first responders. So that was over a 2-week period in which we serviced over 3,800 first responders. Basically, we wanted to make sure that they who were on our front line, that they were vaccinated. And basically what we do is we help them get through the process, get vaccinated, and get back to their duties as quickly as possible.
So in addition to this Medical Reserve Corps and how you volunteer with the Department of Health, I know you're very active also with American Red
Yes,
Cross. So can you talk a little bit about that?
So with American Red Cross, I'm a disaster mental health volunteer. So I've done major incidences, for example, like the shooting in Las Vegas, Parkland. I've done fires at Paradise and other situations, but I've also helped here locally, like the lava response on the Big Island and the Dillingham Airfield crash. But I've also supported things like the services to the armed forces, which helps our military, all volunteer. One of the things that as part of being in the community and representing our state is to be active. So because this is a medical situation with the pandemic, Medical Reserve Corps has activated me to assist, and so that's what I do.
And we're going to have a lot to do. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here at the University of Hawaii on a Saturday morning, and we're going to be talking to you some more as we head into the legislative session. Thank you. So welcome back to Eddie, and welcome to Chair Representative Ryan Yamani. Thank you for joining us today. This question is for both of you. So what is the biggest challenge with the vaccine rollout from your point of view?
Okay. For us, it's making sure that we have accurate information going out to the community. We are asking the community to have patience and know that no vaccine is being wasted, being accounted for. They're taking diligence and not only preparing that whoever comes to get it gets it in a safe and as quickly as possible, but also that they're taking the time and effort to make sure that your information is protected and that the process is as smoothly as possible. So, from what I've seen as working these various pods, is that the people are very committed in making sure that we treat everybody that comes in with the utmost respect. And we understand that it does take time. Unfortunately, there's lines. And then also that we monitor you once you get it for 15 minutes. But, to let everybody know that if you want a shot, that we will get you one. Just the issue is supply and the time. So, we just ask as the volunteers that are helping hundreds and thousands of people go through this process is that, please have patience, come in early. Please be prepared that it's going to take some time at times because the vaccinations do need to sometimes be thawed, as well as we rotate the nursing and the nursing staff that vaccinate. And so there are times where it can happen quicker and others take a little bit longer. But know that, the goal of the Department of Health and all these partners and us volunteers is that we want to make sure we get you in quickly and safely.
So you kind of hit it right on the nail about how it's a long process and it's very detailed oriented. Eddie, if I can turn to you, Chair Yamani spoke to it, but the challenge of supply. Can you speak about that challenge of supply?
Yeah, thank you. I was going to that's actually at the top of my list in terms of challenges, is never really knowing on a week-to-week basis exactly how many doses we're going to be allocated. So we at the DOH, we have this system that we go into, and every week we have to go in and check how many doses have been allocated to the state of Hawaii, and then we order those vaccinations, and then we kind of use that to look at where we're going to go. The other thing is if I could just give one kind of piece of information too, is that at this point, 4 weeks into our vaccination effort, we're now in the place where we also have to consider the second dose, because, so for example, if we got 20,000 doses allocated to us for this week, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 to 8,000 of those doses probably would have to be allocated, and we have to kind of account for the second dose that we need to give for folks that are going to be coming back. And so that's the day-to-day or week-to-week kind of looking at where those are at is really takes a lot of effort to kind of plan and make sure that we're not missing anything. And that's where I think it would be wonderful, and I have a lot of hope with the new administration, but it'd be really wonderful if we could get just a much larger bulk of vaccinations come to us. That way we know kind of what we have, we can not have to do this week-to-week planning. Another challenge that I would just throw out there too is the data piece. There's a national system called VAMS, which is the registry that CDC uses, and that's what they focus on to count vaccinations and to see how, what states are doing and stuff like that. The issue that I have with that is that there's generally at least a 2 to 4 day lag in the amount of vaccinations that are done to what's actually reported and posted on the website. And that's not all CDC's fault. Some of that is that it takes us, it takes all of the different vaccination pods a little bit of time to enter all that data. And so that's why sometimes the numbers will look off, and it gets confusing to folks. And then I think the one other challenge for me personally is not having, again, going back to that idea of, it's great that we have more demand than supply, and yet it's also frustrating on my end personally because we have had people show up to our vaccination site at Windward, for example, that really just don't meet the criteria to get a vaccination. We've had a couple of college students, for example, come to the site, and while our goal is to vaccinate everybody in the state, we've had to kind of turn those folks away and let them know they have to wait. And so that's hard to do, but we have to do it.
So there is this great demand, and I want to share an anecdotal story with you. So my husband went to get his hair cut the other day. He's a nurse. He's one of the fortunate frontline workers who got actually his second dose already. But it was amazing because in this place full of strangers, the only thing on people's minds was vaccines. And there were just so many questions. How do I sign up? Where do I go? If there were the top 2 or 3 things you would tell residents about what they should do as they wait for their vaccination date, what would be 2 or the 3 top things that you would share with them? I'll defer first to Chair Yamani and then go to Eddie.
So, I would remind them that we're still in a pandemic. So, getting the vaccinations 1 and 2 shots, you're still going to be required to follow all the rules regarding wearing masks and social distancing. We also want people to realize is that, share their positive experiences with us, explain to people that, yes, it is a vaccine. So I know some people are fearful of that, but it's like the flu shot. What we're trying to do is we're not only doing it to protect our health, but it's there to protect our family and our friends and the community. So if everybody, moves through that direction and we get herd immunity, then we as a community can actually recover and bounce back quicker. I know people get anxious. They've been trying to either call or sign up with HBH or Queens or their various providers, and we understand sometimes that's frustrating. But to understand that there are people out, everybody wants to get one right now. It's quite popular, so it's a good thing. And then when you do get it, just remember to wait the full 28 days, and then set that up for the second one. And make sure you follow through with the second one, because these vaccines are so precious, right? And it's so needed.
So Eddie, what from the Department of Health standpoint, what are the top 2 or 3 things that residents should do as they wait?
First and foremost, when in doubt, go to the website, hawaiicovid19.com. That's the website where you can find all of the information. We're continuously updating that website with the latest and greatest information that we have. And it's where you could probably get the answers to a lot of the questions that you have. Also talk to your doctors, talk to your primary care physicians. If you have questions about the vaccine, for example, and whether or not you should get it, talk to your primary care providers and have those discussions with them. And then if all else fails, especially for our kupuna who may not have access to the internet or be able to get on the website and stuff like that, just call the Department of Health's main line, 586-4400. And we can try to answer the questions that you have. What I would say is, and I also want to just piggyback on what Chair Yamani said. I think he makes an excellent point, is that at this point, just because people get the vaccine doesn't mean they should stop worrying about the other precautions that are in place. We're not at the point yet where we can release or relieve any of those or relax any of those precautions. But I also really want to thank the public for your enthusiasm in getting the vaccine. Again, this is a good thing. It's good that we're all wanting to get the vaccine, and it's good that we're all rushing and trying to find a way to do it. But I think, as Chair Yamani said, I think patience is where it's at right now, understanding that, you know, we do have a limited supply, and that while our goal is to vaccinate everybody as quickly and as efficiently as we possibly can, we do have those supply constraints. And I think that the idea is to just continue to talk with each other to try to find out information, continue to talk with us, continue to let us know how we can help increase access for folks for the vaccine. And Director Char, who I feel really grateful is at the helm of Department of Health now, will continue to push us in the direction that we need to go.
Thank you so much, Eddie, for joining us. I want to now turn to one of these future sites for a vaccine pod. For those of you, again, who are concerned that the rural areas are going to be left out and it won't be served by one of the larger hospitals, I'd like to show you and share with you a story with a smaller health center, again, on the windward side in Representative Lisa Martin's district, that will be able to serve the rural areas of Waimanalo and its surrounding areas. So if we could cut to that clip with Lisa Martin and Waimanalo Health Center.
I'm here with Dr. Christina Lee, who is at the Waimanalo Health Center.
I'm the Chief Medical Officer at Waimanalo Health Center.
Chief Medical Officer. Waimanalo Health Center really takes care of this community, from preventive outreach type programs all the way to their care, dental, everything. It's such a fabulous facility, and they are, of course, going to be involved in the next super important medical need here, which is going to be vaccination for COVID.
We were so fortunate that Castle Medical Center agreed to vaccinate us. You know, we all got to sign up on their system, and it was very, very easy process. They were so professional. It was so easy to get in and out. I quickly got my vaccine. We of course had to wait the 15 minutes after so they could monitor and make sure that we're okay. And then at the end of that, they give you a card just to go, for your next vaccination. I was so impressed with how seamless the process was for us. In the end, I'm so happy to say, like, all of our providers got vaccinated, and they were all very happy and excited to get vaccinated.
Now, how does it, knowing now that you had your second dose, right? So
We have not had it yet.
Oh,
That's
you
next
haven't
week.
had it.
Next week we'll get our second dose.
Okay. But how do you think that will make you feel?
I have to say, like, already, having gotten the first vaccine, I feel so much more comfortable, and I know it's not full protection yet, but it's still a good amount of protection, I mean, I'll just feel so much better knowing that, like, for all of us, that we're all protected and just can feel more comfortable in taking care of our community. I mean, that is our primary focus.
I could totally relate to that. I was in the Pfizer trial,
Oh,
and so I actually got vaccinated in September.
nice.
I assume I got vaccinated. We'll find out for sure when it's my turn.
Mm-hmm.
But it did makes me feel less worried about being a transmitter. Now tell me about the plans here at Waimanalo Health Center for doing immunization when the time is right.
Yes, thank you for asking. So we are in the planning stages, really just trying to put in all of those pieces so that when vaccine is ready for us to be able to order, because we're not able quite yet, the state hasn't given us the go-ahead, but when we are able, we'll be ready. And we are also looking at reaching out to our patients and let them know, hey, we're ready, come
Yeah,
in.
that's fabulous. And then of course you would have the data on who has conditions that would make
Yes.
them more vulnerable
Yes.
and would therefore qualify earlier, and you can reach out to them.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, what kind of concerns do you think the community might have that would make them hesitant to vaccinate, and how will you address those?
Yeah, I think there's just so much misinformation. Having that reassurance from your own provider that knows you and your medical conditions and your situation goes a long way. And a couple of concerns is, well, it hasn't been out long enough. It's not that corners in the trials were cut. It was the business, the manufacturing happened in parallel with the clinical trials. So the fact that the government gave a lot of money toward this effort to allow these two processes that normally happen one after the other together side by side, that's what's allowed us to get this so quickly. And also, it's not that the mRNA technology is brand new. I mean, mRNA has been studied, for a decade. For some people, there are side effects. We know about them. Usually the side effects resolve within 1 to 2 days. The vast majority of the side effects were considered mild, maybe mild to moderate, rarely severe. But do you want to have 2 days of these minimal side effects? Or do you want to risk catching COVID-19, which has been largely associated with many long-term side effects?
I'm just so grateful to everything that the Waimanalo Health Center does. The staff here is so caring and just always goes the extra step for the community. And Waimanalo is so lucky to have a health center here like this.
I just really encourage everybody to get their COVID-19 vaccine. It's been proven safe and effective in published clinical trials. So it's just so important that if we all want to reclaim our lives back again, if we want to get back to school, get our businesses up and running, like this is the way to do it. This is the path to do it. So we all have our own responsibility to be a part of that solution. And luckily, we're so lucky to have a vaccine that's so effective.
I agree.
Yeah.
So it's really great to see these pods like Waimanalo Health Center getting ready. And we know that people like Chair Yamane will continue to be out at these pods helping and assisting the Department of Health and the state. So I'm back here with Chair Yamane. Chair, in addition to your professional career as a social worker, your volunteer work with the Medical Reserve Corps and the American Red Cross, you are taking on a, quote, old new role as chair of the Health, Human Services and Homelessness Committee in the House. It's a big job. Can you tell us what some of your top priorities are in addition to public health that you'll be focusing in on as chair of Health and Human Services and Homelessness?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Della. So, first I would like to, thank everyone and leadership that, the committee has been combined. So we're actually doing health, human services, and the homeless issue. So what we're addressing is the safety net. And so one of the great things by combining it is the ability to bring in the whole sector, the whole safety net in to discuss the services that we have to address. Our biggest concern right now going into this session is addressing the financial shortfall. With the $1.4 billion budget deficit, we are looking at ways of restricting what government services we provide, and that will impact everyone, including the services out there. And so, we are concerned because during these economic downturns, we see more need out there, right? So we have more people struggling. We want to make sure that every child and family is fed, that families have appropriate health care and coverage. And so there's a greater need that, we as the government, state want to help assist with, but also we're dealing with a huge budget shortfall. So one of the biggest priorities now are we're going through the budget line by line, special fund and operations, and looking at where can we find ways of enhancing what we do to help people and ways of reducing the services for cost efficiencies. And that's been, one of the things where we are looking at both departments, both the Department of Human Services and the Department of Health. So that's been great in the sense that I'm back in health, working with many of the partners I worked with years ago. But it's also refreshing to work with new partners and actually then requiring them to work together. So the vision then is getting through this fiscal time together, right? Neighbors helping neighbors, providers helping providers, and we're going to get through this. It's just that we might have to be a little leaner as we go.
And I think that's really going to be a theme throughout the session for all of our chairs. But for you, it's really important because, like, as you started off your comments, the Health and Human Services is the safety net for the state of Hawaii. So, I know that it's in good hands, and that you're going to be looking at it very strategically. So in addition to the safety net issues, there's always other issues, medical marijuana, vaping. We will remain focused on public health, but those issues will also come up. So do you want to talk a little bit about those issues?
Sure. So, as a chair and working with the majority leader, who was also the former health chair, we are also, looking at what is affecting our community. So we're actually going to be addressing a wide breadth of issues. For example, we're going to be looking at our emergency medical service system, our ambulance system. Is the state and the county relationship the best and most efficient? So we're looking at changing that. We're also looking at the way we deal with direct hospitals, state hospitals, and triage of services. So actually, we're working with Deputy Director Mersereau on looking at a way of triaging and helping those that are having substance abuse issues and chronic mental health. So that way they don't clog our emergency rooms and our hospitals, but that they get triaged immediately to get to the right place for the right care. We're also looking at things like our medical marijuana system, and addressing the concerns about vaping. We're looking at our rural communities. Our neighbor island neighbors and residents face a huge challenge sometimes because they're quite far from the nearest healthcare provider. And so we're actually looking at ways of enhancing and strengthening telehealth so that way they can get access to this care right at home. We're also looking at making sure that our Medicaid population has the services because they're at the most risk. And regarding homeless programs, we are trying to ensure that the programs that are currently out there servicing our community continue even during this downturn. So we're trying to make sure that those are in the budget. We're also looking at ways in which we can work together, both state as well with our federal partners, to see if we can enhance some of these opportunities to make the most per dollar. We've been talking to Kapuna, we're talking to our Kiki, and we want to assure everybody that we are doing our very best to make sure that the services that is needed for them will be around. And so, to rest assured that we as the majority caucus is working very diligently on coming up with bills and packages that keep the focus on the children and our families and our communities as the number one priority as we move forward.
I feel very confident, Chair, that the Health and Human Services and Homelessness Committee is in good hands. I want to give you just 20 seconds To wrap up this discussion, your thoughts on the connection between public health generally and economic recovery.
Sure, it's key. Our economy is tourism, military, and it's based on people. And how do we ensure that services are done well is to ensure and invest in our people. So this COVID pandemic affected families, it affected mental health, it affected our children, how we even do schooling. And so this has permeated through every aspects of our lives. And so I want you to, you out there to know is that we are making sure that the services in the state will encompass all the services to make people feel better and supported as they go through this.
Thank you so much, Chair Yamani, for joining us. I know that we're heading in a good direction. So we started this segment talking about vaccines and how they're becoming available to residents. It's exciting to see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel of COVID-19, even though it's had such a wide-ranging effect on us and has affected all aspects of our life, especially our small businesses. So to pivot and end the show on a lighter note, we went out to visit Freshman Representative Patrick Pihana Branco in his district of Kailua and Kaneohe. The focus of this segment is hopefully as we look towards economic recovery. We're going to visit a few landmark sites in his district and see how they're operating amidst COVID-19 and how we can remain safe while continuing to support the small businesses that are so important to our communities across the state. So tell me where we're at and tell me a little bit about this awesome small business here in your district.
Yeah, I'm so excited to share this with you. This is the food company, been around for 20 years. Originally they're located in Enchanted Lakes, and about maybe a year, maybe probably 2 years ago, they were able to move to this spot in Kailua, and it's just an awesome, great local place. They have awesome little musubis. My cousins love these like little finger musubis. But they're also known for like mochiko chicken. Their ahi katsu is super good. So this is like my go-to spot anytime I'm hungry. And Brenda Tanaka, the owner, has been cooking for over 20 years, even further, but she's been in business for over 20 years.
And they cater, right? So it's not just takeout, it's not just small plates, but they also cater too.
Exactly. Yeah, I just love this place.
Thank you for sharing it with me.
Awesome.
And I think this business really represents, Kailua. Back in the day, Kailua was actually a dairy, and there was a lot of small businesses, and Kailua still has a lot of small businesses that we're very proud of. And Food Company is one of those.
Other great businesses we have in the district is Cinnamons as well, guava chiffon pancakes, and they actually have a branch in Japan, right? So like I'm very proud of our small businesses are expanding. Lanikai juice, right? Aloha salads, Boots and Kimos. We have some like good staple restaurants here in Kailua.
So, having gone through the pandemic, what have you seen these small businesses having to do?
They've definitely had to adjust. I've seen the hours definitely shift. I've also seen the innovative ways, a lot of takeout, a lot of apps, but they're adjusting, they're trying, and they're really helping. And also, what I've also noticed with small businesses, they really are taking care of their employees to making sure that they have work and are staying employed. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, this is definitely one of the go-to places here in
Absolutely.
Kailua. Thank you for sharing with me.
Of course.
Where to next?
We're actually going to head over to Manuhi, which is another great local small business. We're here at Manuhi, which is an amazing aloha shirt designer here in Kailua. The designers is Auntie Deneen and Uncle Pono Lun. And last year, Manuhi actually celebrated 35 years. They started off going to craft fairs, and now they have 2 brick and mortar stores, actually one in Kailua and then actually one in Repelati's district. And actually my connection here is actually the Luns. Uncle Pono was actually my baseball coach growing up, and we're a champion baseball team, the Reds. And and so I love to rep Kailua and rep this design. This is a great store and a staple of our community.
Yeah, it's great to see this store thriving and also just continuing to put out good product that looks really good on you.
Thank you. Aloha, we're here at Bookends in Kailua Town. It's a staple of our community, and we're very lucky to be here with the owner, Pat Benning, and she's going to share with us a little bit about Bookends.
Oh yeah, we opened almost 23 years ago now. It's been, I think in April, 23 years. Been a long haul, I'll tell you, and a lot of fun. I was a bookseller before that. I worked for the bookstore that was here before that, and Kailua seemed like such a perfect town to be operating in. I knew the community was really supportive, so I was happy to open up, and we've been here ever since.
And you have a passion for children's books, correct?
Oh, I absolutely do. Children's books are you know, they open the doors to another world. So it's showing kids that there are other things out there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like as a small kid, my favorite book was Rainbow Fish. And then also the other one too is I have a copy of it is Ping the Duck.
Oh, the story of
Yeah.
Ping. Oh gosh, I love that book.
So you have children's books here, but then you have an amazing Hawaiian collection. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, the Hawaiian collection. Yeah, that's also kind of a passion of mine. We get old Hawaiiana from all over. I've got some things in from a guy in Oregon. They just come from all over the place.
So you're going to be purchasing a book here today.
Yeah.
Bronco, what are you getting?
I'm getting Ben, a memoir from Street Kid to Governor. I've actually been recommended to read this. I haven't read this, but my favorite book about Hawaiian history is actually Price of Paradise by Randall Roth. And it's actually a collection of short essays about topics that affect Hawaii, and it's actually even more relevant here. And now with the pandemic, it's the same topics: economic diversification, the role of tourism, and it's a great guide to give you a good base.
That's pretty, yeah, it's very interesting.
Thanks for sharing Bookends
Yeah,
with me, and
awesome.
let's go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Tell me where we're at.
Yeah, we're actually here at probably one of the most important and famous historical landmarks here in Kailua. It's not too old, built in 1961, Pali Lanes, but this is the landmark here in Kailua that is very important for a lot of the local families. A lot of local families grew up bowling here. For me, my grandmother bowls here every Tuesday for the last 20 years. And so I grew up actually doing my homework on the tables, watching my grandmother bowl at night.
So tell me where we are and a little history about this place.
Yeah, so we're here at Hamakua Wetlands. In Kailua, everyone knows Kailua Beach is super famous, but a lot of people fail to recognize that we also have these amazing wetlands. We actually have the largest wetlands on Oahu. The entire wetlands complex, which is Hamakua as well as Kauainui, is about 836 acres. And during ancient Hawaiian times, this was actually like a breadbasket for Native Hawaiians. Actually, there's a story that King Kamehameha came to Kailua, and during a time of famine, there was an edible mud that was only found in Kauainui called the lepo aia, and he actually ate of this mud. And so this was very productive. This was actually in ancient Hawaiian times, the largest Native Hawaiian fish pond was actually in Kauainui. And so right here we are seeing Hamakua wetlands, and then it also flows into Kauainui, which is right above the peak over there. And also it's covered right now, but it actually is 40 to 50 feet deep in the wetlands. And right now we're restoring. There's plans to restore, and it's actually a breeding ground for many of the Native Hawaiian wetland birds, the alai ula, the alai ke'oke'o, the koloa maule, which is the Native Hawaiian duck, is also found here. So this is a real treasure that we have here in Kailua, which I didn't really realize until I was younger, when I was a small boy riding my bike along these trails, and how rich it is, how grateful we are that we have these wetlands here in Kailua.
So can you talk about the people who've kind of helped to restore this place?
Absolutely. There's many different nonprofit groups that are working to restore the wetlands, especially actually my colleague in the neighboring district, Representative Martin, District 51, is actually right over there, is working on restoring the hillside and planting Native Hawaiian plants. And I actually had the great opportunity 2 weeks ago. I was gifted during a koa reforestation, koa seedling in 2005 that I kept in my yard in a pot. And she was kind enough to allow me to plant this tree 2 weeks ago in the project. So it's great to see that my little tree got a home, which is actually over 12 feet tall now.
Thank you for sharing this really special spot with you, Representative Branco.
Thank you, Deputy Director Eddie Mersereau and Representatives Yamane, Martin, and Branco for joining me on this first episode of Season 2 of Talk Story with House Majority. If you enjoyed this segment of Talk Story, or if you have an issue or story you'd like me to dive into for a future episode, email me at repbalati@capital.hawaii.gov with your comments and feedback. Please follow the House Majority on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Hi House Dems for the most current news, events, and updates from the State House. You can also visit our website at hawaiihousedemocrats.com, which has resources, news stories, and valuable information about the House Majority and the 2021 legislative session. Please stay safe, healthy, and informed. We'll see you next on Friday, February 5th to Talk Story with House Majority. Aloha.